You've probably seen it. The tremor that begins in one hand. The walk that gradually changes, slower, more cautious, like the ground itself has gone uncertain. The face that slowly stops showing what's happening inside. Parkinson's disease. When most people picture it, they picture a brain disease. A problem with the cells that control movement. Something going wrong somewhere behind the eyes. Medicine pictured it that way for nearly a century. Then researchers started working backward. Instead of watching the disease develop, they pulled the medical histories of people already diagnosed and asked one question. What were you experiencing 10 years before any of this started? Almost none of them said my brain. Parkinson's is the fastest growing neurological disease on Earth. 10 million people have it. New cases have doubled over the last 30 years, and researchers expect that number to double again by 2040. There's still no cure. By the time the tremor is visible, a large share of the brain cells responsible for movement are often already gone. Some estimates put that loss at 60% before the first symptom ever shows. Once those cells are gone, they don't come back, which means whatever window exists for catching this early is a window most people don't know exists. One study went back through those medical histories and measured the gap. On average, the earliest sign, a change in bowel habits, a gut discomfort nobody thought twice about, showed up almost 17 years before diagnosis. Not months before. Years? Plural? Before the brain was involved in any way anyone could see. You've had that kind of discomfort. Everyone has. A cramp, an off week, a stomach that just felt wrong for a few days. Most of it means nothing at all, and it still won't after this video. But somewhere between nothing and the earliest sign of something, medicine only recently started asking a different question, one that led back to an organ nobody thought to check. Most nerves in your body carry orders. Brain to muscle, brain to organ, top down. One nerve runs the opposite way. It's the longest nerve you have. It starts at the base of your skull, runs down through your neck, past your heart and lungs, and ends in the wall of your stomach and intestines. Roughly 80% of what travels along it moves upward, gut to brain, not brain to gut. Picture it like a cable running floor to floor in a building, except almost every signal in that cable is climbing, not descending. Reports heading up to the top floor faster than instructions ever come down. You've never felt a single one of those signals arrive. You're not supposed to. Most of what your gut reports never reaches conscious thought at all. It just quietly adjusts hunger, mood, and digestion without asking permission first. This is also the nerve most linked to instinct, the gut feeling you get before you consciously know why. That's not a metaphor. That's this nerve reporting something upward before your conscious mind has caught up. Your gut is talking to your brain more than your brain is talking to your gut. Right now, while you listen to this. Because that pathway already exists and already runs mostly upward, it turns out to be useful for more than reporting. In 2019, a team at Johns Hopkins asked a different question about that same nerve, not what it reports, but what else it might be able to carry. They took the specific protein found clumped inside Parkinson's affected brains and injected it into the gut lining of healthy mice. Picture the injection site, the gut wall, healthy pink tissue, nothing visibly wrong, nothing that would show up on a scan. Months passed. Nothing outward changed. Then they checked the mice's brains. The protein was already there. Brain cells had started dying. Movement problems appeared, the same kind seen in early Parkinson's. So they ran it again. Same protein, same injection site. This time, before injecting, they severed the nerve first. Nothing arrived. The brain stayed intact. Injected protein. Severed nerve. No damage. It's about as close to a controlled real-world test of the pathway as biology allows. The route carrying your gut signals upward is the same route a misfolded protein can use to reach your brain, because it's the same physical wire, and biology doesn't build a separate lane for damage. If cutting that nerve protects mice, the same logic should hold in humans. It turns out someone already ran that experiment, decades ago by accident. For most of the 20th century, surgeons cut this exact nerve as a routine treatment for stomach ulcers. Hundreds of thousands of people went through it, a standard operation unremarkable at the time. Picture the paperwork: cardboard boxes of ordinary surgical records, stacked in a basement archive for 70 years, nobody involved thinking about the brain at all. These weren't Parkinson's patients being studied for Parkinson's. They were ulcer patients tracked for something completely different, and the pattern showed up anyway. The accidental kind of evidence that's hard to explain away. Decades later, someone went back through those records and checked what happened to those patients over the following years. People who'd had that nerve severed developed Parkinson's at substantially lower rates than people who hadn't. Because the nerve is the road, cutting the road changes who the disease can reach, in mice, and it turns out in the archive too. One more piece. Not everyone with this pathway develops the disease, so something decides whether the protein misfolds in the first place. People who go on to develop Parkinson's tend to show a different mix of bacteria in their gut years before diagnosis, plus a low, quiet irritation in the gut lining. Not pain, nothing you'd ever flag. Not a stomachache. Not a symptom. Picture it less like an injury and more like weather, a slightly different chemical climate running under everything else, every day for years before anyone upstairs notices. That environment isn't fixed. It shifts with what you eat, how you sleep, how you move, the same gut bacteria already responding to your Tuesday. Diet, sleep, movement, the same 3 levers every other video on this channel keeps circling back to, apparently reach all the way down to whether a single protein folds the right way. 4 separate findings. 1 shape underneath them. The nerve carrying most of your gut signals up to your brain is the same nerve that, for some people, carries something else entirely, years, sometimes decades, before it reaches anywhere you'd notice. An organ you've probably never once connected to your brain may already be running interference on it, quietly. 4 reasons that have nothing to do with digestion and everything to do with what's living inside it. You've spent your whole life assuming the 2 conversations, my stomach and my mind, don't cross wires. They do. They might be crossing wires right now. Parkinson's, in a meaningful share of cases, begins years before diagnosis, in an organ nobody thinks to check, moving along a wire that was never built to carry anything dangerous, because nothing dangerous was ever supposed to travel down there. By the time it's loud enough to see in a hand or a walk, it has already been quiet for a decade. So next time your stomach does something forgettable, a cramp, a bad week, a bug that passes in a day or 2, you'll probably still forget it by dinner. Most of it is nothing. That's it. But that assumption you've always made, that gut stuff stays in your gut and brain stuff happens somewhere else, upstairs, unrelated, was never quite true. Not for the people this eventually caught up with. Not mechanically for you either. The wire runs both ways. It always has. You just never had a reason to think about which direction most of the traffic was going, or to notice it quietly doing its work while you eat dinner tonight without thinking about it once. Ask someone with the tremor what they'd noticed 10 years earlier, and, like the researchers found, the brain is the last place they'd point to. Medicine spent a century looking for this disease in the brain because that's where it finally got loud enough to hear. It turns out that's just where the story ends up being told. It started somewhere quieter, doing nothing anyone thought to watch. The body was never as divided as the specialists made it look. It usually does.